Welcome back to another episode of the Tracy Take. Today we are discussing what all of our football fans and all of you football fans love in the month of August, fantasy football. We have already done our sleeper quarterback picks. So in this episode, we are going to do our sleeper running back picks. And in this video, what we mean by sleeper are not obviously the most popular ones that you're going to get in the first round, the Christian McCaffreys, Derrick Henrys, Dalvin Cooks. These are going to be guys that you can probably be looking for in those fifth, sixth, maybe even later on eighth, ninth rounds. Really add some value, and if you're in a flex league or add some really good depth to your team. So really just kind of kick things off. Ryan, I would say if you want to start with your number one guy of who is it again?
It is Antonio Gibson, but before I get into that, I do just want to say if you have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe and let us know in the comments if we missed anybody at the end of the video. So, Antonio Gibson, I know what you're thinking. Not a guy that's probably pretty prominent on a lot of people's radars, but I think he's actually being a little underrated. I think that the Washington offense has gotten a lot better, and last year they had Adrian Peterson, who started 6 of their 10 games, but kind of in the back half of the season, Antonio Gibson started to take over. He started 10 games. He had 170 rushes. He had about 800 rushing yards. And then in the receiving game, he had 36 receptions for 250 yards. And that's only starting 10 games. I think that he genuinely could be kind of a Christian McCaffrey 2.0. And his ADP right now is 17, which is the back end of the second round.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can get him in the early to mid second round, I think he has true RB1 potential. And I think that it would be a fantastic pick just because of the value. You can get a top wide receiver. You can get a Julio Jones, Devontae Adams, a guy in the first round, and then still come back and get a guy, especially in PPR leagues, that's going to put up 20 plus a week, I think. So
yeah, especially that Washington offense. It really is kind of underrated. Like everyone talks about the like the quarterback situation, but last year through 14 games, he had almost 800 yards. He had 11 touchdowns, but he also had 36 catches. And so if you're in a PPR league, that's going to be huge per catch. And so he definitely is a great value guy to have on that team. And I believe a legit RB1, especially as that offense gets better.
Yeah.
So,
and he is kind of the only guy. I know they have J.D. McKissick, who I think we're going to talk about here in a few minutes, but he is kind of the.
Oh,
wait, what?
Go ahead.
But he is kind of like the lead back, and he can play all 3 downs. And so even if they split series, I mean, he's still going to get 20 plus touches a game, I think. So
yeah. Well, I would say that's honestly a great segue into my first guy, which was going to be J.D. McKissick, the second running back of the Washington football team. And a lot of it for me is all the fantasy leagues I'm in there are PPR leagues. And last year alone, he had 80 catches, 589 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Yeah. That's huge for running backs. He's a guy that you can have on your bench, and if you can also kind of play matchups if one of your star running backs is on bye week and Washington's playing a weak defensive team. You put him in there and, try and be kind of aggressive because he is a great catcher out of the backfield. And he can provide a lot of good value. It's also, if you're in a flex league or if you have a lot of a league with a lot of starting players, so to say, if you're in a flex and then receiver running back, then also just a 3 running back league, so to say. He's a good guy to have on your depth because he's going to get you a lot of catches. That's a lot of points right there that he'll add. It brings a lot better value than some of the other second string running backs in the league. And so that combination of Antonio Gibson, J.D. McKissick, maybe if you want to be aggressive, you can draft both of them in case if one gets hurt, and then the other one's going to pick up more. But honestly, either or to me, I think would probably add good depth and good value.
Yeah, I know. I like to call running backs like J.D. McKissick RB2.5 because they get so many catches that they could potentially get RB2 numbers, but they're a really good flex option that if you want to play matchups like I know, for example, the Patriots last year were not good against running backs coming out of the backfield. And so a guy like J.D. McKissick would be a fantastic matchup against some of the teams that allow a lot of receptions and receiving yards to running backs. But kind of keeping on the PPR theme, and running backs that actually get a lot of receptions out of the backfield, I want to go to your home team, Atlanta, Georgia, and kind of talk about Mike Davis here for a second.
Yep.
So if you were just like a casual fan of the NFL, do you think you would know the name Mike Davis?
I'm a Falcons fan, and he was the running back last year for the Panthers when Christian McCaffrey got hurt. I did not know who he was until he got signed by the Falcons.
What if I told you that he was almost 80% of Christian McCaffrey was in 2019 in 2020? Would you believe me?
No, I wouldn't, because Christian McCaffrey was unreal in 2019.
So he had 60 receptions for almost 400 receiving yards and 2 receiving touchdowns, and he had 165 rushes for about 650 rushing yards and 6 rushing touchdowns.
Wow. Okay.
So he is actually kind of more of a power back, so he's not as finessey as Christian McCaffrey was. Yeah. But I think that actually relates really well into Arthur Smith's system, who's the new head coach there. And I think he's kind of a poor man's Derrick Henry. The only thing is Mike Davis can actually catch the ball out of the backfield. So he's actually going to play, I guess, more of a 3-down role with the Falcons. Mm-hmm. And they don't really have anyone else. Like Ito Smith is gone. Todd Gurley's gone. That's it. That's kind of all they have at the running back position besides some younger guys, some younger unproven guys. And so I think you can get him in middle of round 7, and I think he is an RB2 on a bad day. I think he's an RB1.5, I guess.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and that's what I was going to say, just to kind of touch up or to follow up on the point that you just made, is Atlanta doesn't really have anybody else. He's going to be playing a lot of the snaps in the game, and he's going to get a lot of touches. And so it could, because there's not really anybody else. The Falcons do have a weaker offensive line, so that also might be good because he might be getting more catches out of the backfield.
I will also add, so did the Carolina Panthers last year.
Yeah. So he does kind of fit into the system and kind of what Arthur Smith and Atlanta are trying to go for offensively. And it also helps there's not really anyone else there that has been proven to be that number 2 guy that can come in and have 10 to 15 games to help take some of the load off of Mike Davis. So I really do think that he'd be a great value pick. Did you say what his ADP was?
It's 65, so the middle of round 7.
Middle of round 7. I think that's
in a 10-team league. Yeah,
that's a solid spot to pick him up in, and so coming to the 6th round, going into the 7th, start looking for his name. And so kind of that's actually another good segue into my guy, and it's kind of a similar situation, but with Miles Sanders out of Philadelphia. I think it's going to be a offensive heavy team as they have a weaker defense. Their offensive line is historically better, so that might be better for him in the rushing yard aspect. But there also isn't really too much other competition. He is the number 1 guy. Him and Jalen Hurts can be very effective out of the backfield, which can help his rushing yards, but also his receiving yards as well, and his receiving catches. So I think Miles Sanders is going to be a guy to be looking for, and probably the 4th or 5th round. I'm not sure what his ADP is exactly, but I feel like he would fall in that spot, and he could come in to be RB2 or would be a great flex option for some of the, depending on the type of league that you're in.
Yeah, and they did bring in Kerryon Johnson in the offseason. However, Miles Sanders is still, in my opinion, the clear number 1. And even if they split kind of carries, Miles Sanders will probably still get a lot of the 3rd-down roles because Kerryon Johnson isn't necessarily a receiving back out of the backfield.
Yeah.
But another thing, too, is Miles Sanders is kind of in a prove it or get out. So
kind of, I think it's
his 3rd. Get
off
the pot. Kind of situation.
I'm pretty sure it's his third year, and so that's always been kind of a big year. Guys normally take big strides into becoming solid veteran players for their teams, or A lot of
Yeah.
teams tend to move on. So it's going to be a big year for him.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think he's a guy to look out for. Do you have his ADP? Did you say that?
I did not. No,
Okay,
I
okay.
did not.
But no, I think he's definitely a guy to look out for. I want to say he's probably later mid rounds.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah. But my last running back pick is a guy for the Los Angeles Rams in Daryl Henderson.
Mm-hmm.
So Cam Akers got hurt. Daryl Henderson was going to be undrafted, but Cam Akers tore his Achilles, and now Daryl Henderson is really kind of the uh, only guy in that backfield. I know they have a few rookies that a lot of people are kind of
Yep.
saying like this guy might be a guy to look out for late in the season, but I think Daryl Henderson is going to be a guy that you can count on to just get consistent production, just because I think he's going to be in a widespread offense. I think they're going to throw to him a little bit more, and he is a guy that can catch. He only had 16 receptions last year, but Cam Akers was a little bit more of that guy.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that I liked was that he had 140 carries and he had about 625 yards, which puts him above the league average at 4.5 yards a carry. So if they continue to give him more workload, he might be a guy that you could see stretch that average over more carries. And he only had 5 touchdowns, but they don't really have anyone else, and he is kind of their red zone guy. But lastly, just to kind of finish off on Daryl Henderson, I wanted to point out that they run a more spread out offense, and so they do throw to the running back more out of the backfield than most teams, just to kind of try and keep defenses up, because they have never been a truly strong running team, and that was one of the things that made Todd Gurley so deadly, was that McVay really liked to get his players out in space and let them make plays.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that in a PPR league that will translate for Daryl Henderson, because again, there's no one else to really throw to, so they're going to have to run these plays with him, and so he'll get an increase in just overall touches based off of that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and that's absolutely, especially if you're trying to find value, find some of these weaker teams. Well, and not saying the Rams are weak, but the weaker running teams who don't have good depth at the running back, and pick their number one guy, and you can get them in middle late rounds, and get these first string starters who are going to get 15 to 20 touches a game, and that could really just be good depth to keep adding to your team. So, which is going to be kind of actually where my final guy I think is kind of falling into. It was his rookie year, and I think he can improve a lot, because he does play for the Kansas City Chiefs. But Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I think, is going to have an improved sophomore season compared to his rookie season. He's understand. He didn't have a bad rookie season by any means, but fantasy wise though, through 13 games he had 800 rushing yards and only 4 touchdowns. But he did also have 36 catches, 300 yards with 1 receiving touchdown. That's a lot of just consistent added points. And if he can stay healthy for a full season, I think he can break 1,000 yards rushing. I think he can throw on more rushing and receiving touchdowns. But he's also going to get a lot more catches. The way that Kansas City offense runs, similar to Los Angeles, very spread out. Everyone has to catch the ball. And if Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce are covered downfield, Patrick Mahomes loves to just throw down to the check down guy. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I think, is going to eat up a lot of PPR points for leagues to get, for guys to get. I have him just outside, just based off his performance from last year, just outside the starting RB2. But I think similar to a lot of the people that we spoke about here on this list, he kind of has a RB 2.5. He could be an RB2 for you. Yeah. I think he'd be a great flex option, and then you can kind of move him around with some other running back, Mike Davis, so to say, or some other receiving option in the flex role.
I actually think he's probably RB 1.5 to RB 2. Just because, one, they bolstered up that offensive line, so they're going to actually be able to run just a lot more straight up like run schemes. They don't really have to do any misdirections, and they can just give him more carries. Le'Veon Bell is now out of the picture in Kansas City, so Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a little bit more of the only guy. I know they brought in Darrell Williams in the offseason, but I think he's RB 1.5. I would say mid to late third round, I guess, is where he would be targeted. I don't see his ADP like right in front of me, but especially in that offense, he's going to get a ton of touches. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I definitely think all 6 of these running backs are going to be guys that if you draft in their ADP range, that are going to pay dividends for your fantasy team in 2021. So
Yeah.
yeah. But I think that's going to do it for this episode of the Tracy Take. If you have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe, and put down in the comments if we missed anybody that you think might be a fantasy sleeper this year.